Good evening and welcome to the Business Buzz, the program by Newsfirst that is focused on news and activities centered around Sri Lanka's economy. I'm Theruni Karunaratne. Let's start off with the headlines for tonight. Sri Lanka-India ferry service to resume next week. Book publishers up in arms over bat. Cathay Pacific resumes flights to Colombo. Microsoft becomes world's largest company. Pakistan International Airlines up for sale soon. We start out with some market news. The Ministry of Finance announced that 2 Chinese and Indian companies have been pre-qualified in the bidding of acquiring the majority shares of Sri Lanka Telecom. Earlier, India's Jio Platforms and China's GoTune International Investment Holdings and the United Kingdom's Leica Group's Pettigo Commercial International had submitted bids to buy majority stakes in the telecom company. Of the 3, the bidders that have now been pre-qualified are China's GoTune International Investment Holdings and India's Jio Platform.
Necessary measures are being taken to divest 50.23% of shares owned by the government in Sri Lanka Telecom to a private company, according to the ministry. The government, acting through the Ministry of Finance, had recently called for request for qualification from potential investors for the divestiture of its shares in Sri Lanka Telecom PLC. Accordingly, the Cabinet appointed a special project committee and the special Cabinet appointed negotiating committee have pre-qualified India's Jio Platforms, a subsidiary of Reliance Industries Limited owned by Indian billionaire Mukesh Ambani, and China's GoTune International Investment Holdings as bidders for the RFP stage. The International Finance Corporation acts as the transaction advisor for the divestiture of its shares held by the government in Sri Lanka Telecom PLC.
Sri Lanka Insurance Corporation, the state-owned insurance giant with a history spanning over 60 years, officially began a new chapter with the legal segregation of its life and general insurance businesses. Now, this decision is in compliance with the regulatory framework set by the Insurance Regulatory Commission of Sri Lanka and took effect from the 1st of February 2024. The occasion was celebrated at the Sri Lanka Insurance head office on the 1st of February. At the ceremony, the chairman of Sri Lanka Insurance, President's Counsel Ronald C. Pereira, presented the business registrations to Group CEO Chandana L. Alukgama, symbolizing the establishment of 2 distinct entities, Sri Lanka Insurance Corporation Life Limited and Sri Lanka Insurance Corporation General Limited. The legal segregation of Sri Lanka Insurance Corporation Life Limited and Sri Lanka Insurance Corporation General Limited allows for a more focused execution of their respective business strategies, ensuring enhanced efficiency and effectiveness in serving their customers. Reflecting on this significant milestone, the chairman of Sri Lanka Insurance, President's Counsel Ronald Pereira stated, quote, "The segregation is not just a corporate restructuring. It marks the beginning of a new journey for Sri Lanka Insurance. While we bid farewell to our composite status, we welcome the opportunity for greater specialization and excellence in both life and general insurance. Our commitment to our customers, employees and the nation remains unwavering," unquote. Chandana Alukgama, Group Chief Executive Officer of Sri Lanka Insurance, stated, quote, "Even though the legal segregation commenced on the 1st of February, the life and general businesses of SLIC have functioned as distinctive entities with separate profit and loss statements, financial operations and strategic focuses. Today's announcement formalizes this legal segregation, marking a significant milestone in our pursuit of excellence. It is also imperative to note that financial management of the 2 businesses has been prudently managed independently, ensuring the security of our funds and investments. This is a testament to our commitment to best practices and sound financial governance," unquote. Now, there is good news from the tourism industry. Tourist arrivals surpassed 200,000 last month, with a total of 208,253. Now, however, considering that this is the height of the winter tourist season, the total is somewhat below what many industry analysts had hoped for and is less than the 210,352 last December. In January 2022, arrivals were 82,327 and grew to 102,545 in January last year. In January 2024, India contributed 34,399 visitors. Russia follows with 31,159, while the United Kingdom, Germany and China round out the top 5 with 16,665, 13,593 and 11,511 arrivals respectively. France, Poland, Australia, the United States and the Netherlands comprise the rest of the top 10. These 10 countries accounted for 68% or 141,934 arrivals, with all other countries contributing 66,319 or 32%. The government's attempt to register a taxpayer identification number or TIN for all citizens above the age of 18 has run into many practical issues which are now being sorted out, according to State Minister of Finance, Ranjit Siamalapati. The State Minister said that the lack of equipment and human resources at the Inland Revenue Department are among the identified issues. During a review meeting held at the President's office last week, permission was granted to hire personnel for the Inland Revenue Department. In addition, approval was obtained to hire university graduates as trainees with a fair payment. State Minister Siamalapati said that measures were taken to ensure the tax registration and related work will not be disrupted. He added that measures will be taken to issue the taxpayer identification number using data collected by the Department for Registration of Persons and the Department of Motor Traffic. The second phase of the IMF program sees an extraordinary 110 commitments that the government of Sri Lanka must complete. The government of Sri Lanka successfully completed 60 of the 73 initial commitments agreed upon with the International Monetary Fund, according to Ferry Research. Now, however, 13 commitments were not fulfilled. Sri Lanka completed most of its initial commitments under its IMF bailout program, but concerns remain over delays in governance and transparency reforms. These commitments are the conditions with regard to the crucial $2.9 billion loan from the IMF, which was secured in March 2023 and is being received in staggered tranches. Verite Research reports that of the 73 commitments due by the end of November 2023, 60 have been met, albeit with some delays. However, 13 commitments remain unfulfilled, raising concerns about Sri Lanka's commitment to crucial reforms. 5 of these were irreversibly missed and cannot be carried forward, while 8 have been deferred to the second phase of the program, leading up to the next IMF review. Adding to the complexity, the IMF has modified due dates for an additional 27 commitments initially set for after November, categorizing them as pending, alongside the 8 carried forward obligations. Sri Lanka and the IMF have also added 75 new commitments to the program. Consequently, the second phase of the EFF kicks off with staggering 110 commitments hanging in the balance. And now let's take a look at some of the new developments both globally and nationally. The Ministry of Ports, Shipping and Aviation confirmed that ferry services will recommence from Kankasanture in Sri Lanka to Nagapattinam in Tamil Nadu, India on the 15th of February 2024. The ferry service was the most popular regular method of transport between the two neighboring nations for decades, dating back to the pre-independence era. It was suspended in the 1980s after the Civil War broke out. Since the end of the war in 2009, various attempts have been made to recommence the ferry service, but have been delayed due to political and procedural challenges. However, with the renewed efforts and approval from the Indian government, the ferry's return opens up a new chapter in bilateral connectivity. The country's book industry has called upon President Ranil Wickremesinghe to immediately cancel the prohibitive 18% value-added tax to avert long-term consequences of making books too expensive for the general population. Books were not previously subject to the value-added tax.
Local book publishers, printers, book importers, authors and academics held a press conference to voice their opposition to the unavoidable hike in the prices of books consequent to the imposition of VAT, pointing to the negative long-term effects it would have on socio-economic development by making access to knowledge unaffordable to many. They included the Sri Lanka Book Publishers Association, the Sri Lanka Book Importers and Exporters Association, and the Sri Lanka Writers Association. Speakers representing different stakeholder groups in the book industry also charged that with the indiscriminate extension of VAT to a highly sensitive and vulnerable sector like books, Sri Lanka was also in violation of the UNESCO Florence Agreement of 1950, to which the country was an early signatory and continues to be a contracting state. The UNESCO Florence Agreement is a treaty that binds contracting states to not impose custom duties and taxes on certain educational, scientific and cultural materials that are imported. It was also pointed out that the industry already contributes to over 1 billion rupees to the government's tax revenue via the VAT paid by importers that supply 90% of the raw materials used in the production of school textbooks and other books. The imposition of VAT on books and therefore results in an anomaly of double taxation for publishers, further aggravating a difficult situation. Sri Lanka's decision to impose 18% of VAT on books has already generated concern internationally, with the International Publishers Association and the European and International Booksellers Federation writing to President Ranil Wickremesinghe to voice their objectives.
The government of Sri Lanka and the World Bank have signed an agreement for $150 million in financing for Sri Lanka to strengthen the resilience of the financial sector through the Financial Sector Safety Net Strengthening Project. The project agreement between the World Bank and the Central Bank of Sri Lanka was also entered in respect of the project implementation agreements, the Central Bank of Sri Lanka said in a media release.
The project development objective is to strengthen Sri Lanka's financial sector safety net with the focus on the Sri Lanka Deposit Insurance Scheme, which is managed by the CBSL. The project also aims to strengthen the financial and institutional capacity of SLDIS in line with international best practices for effective deposit insurance schemes. The CBSL will be the implementing agency of FSSNP. The Deposit Insurance Scheme of Sri Lanka was legally instituted and named as the Sri Lanka Deposit Insurance Scheme with the enactment of the Banking Special Provisions Act No. 17 of 2023. Signing of agreements between GOSL, the WB and the CBSL took place between KM Mahinda Siriwardana, the Secretary to the Treasury, Faris Haddad-Zavos, the World Bank Country Director for Maldives, Nepal and Sri Lanka, and Dr. P. Nandalal Veerasinghe, the Governor of the CBSL, respectively. The World Bank Regional Vice President for South Asia, Martin Racer, was in attendance at the signing ceremony.
The Data Protection Authority has announced that the Personal Data Protection Act, or the PDPA, will become fully operational from the 18th of March 2025. The Act is of crucial importance to both state and private-owned companies, as well as multinational corporations, as it both restricts and protects all personal data that is stored in such organizations. Through an extraordinary gazette issued by the President as the Minister of Technology, by virtue of the powers vested in him by the Personal Data Protection Act, or PDPA No. 9 of 2022, and the Constitution, the following dates have been notified for the operationalization of the PDPA. 1st of December 2023 as the date on which the provisions of Part 6, 8, 9 and 10 of the aforesaid Act shall come into operation, and 18th of March 2025 as the date on which the provisions of Part 1, 2, 3 and 7 of the aforesaid Act shall come into operation. Part 5 of the Data Protection Act was brought into operation in July 2023, which enabled the President to appoint the Chairman and the Board of Directors of the Data Protection Authority. The DPA serves as the regulator for safeguarding rights of citizens related to processing of personal data by state and private sector parties. The PDPA is also expected to be a facilitator for growth and innovation in digital economy, as stated in its preamble of the PDPA. As per the latest Gazette notification, the PDPA will be fully operational and enforced commencing 18th March 2025. Part 4 of the Act, which deals with the provisions of the use of personal data to disseminate solicited messages, will be brought into operation at a subsequent date as provided for in the Act, which is not earlier than 24 months and not later than 48 months from the date the Act was certified by the Speaker. Pakistan's caretaker government is making plans for the sale of loss-making Pakistan International Airlines, which will be binding on a new government, which would be elected in parliamentary elections next week.
Pakistan is in deep economic crisis and has agreed to overhaul loss-making state-owned enterprises under a deal with the International Monetary Fund for a $3 billion bailout. The PIA had liabilities of 785 billion Pakistani rupees and accumulated losses of 713 billion rupees as of June last year. Its CEO has said that losses in 2023 were likely to be 112 billion rupees. A 51% stake with full management control is expected to be offered to buyers after parking the airline's debts in a separate entity. Founded in 1946, PIA currently has a fleet of 31 aircraft and serves 58 destinations.
Microsoft became the second ever company worth $3 trillion as the artificial intelligence boom sent shares of the company's stock soaring higher. For comparison, Microsoft's market value is now larger than the entire GDP of France and is just behind that of the United Kingdom.
Apple is the only other company to have reached the historic milestone. Shares of Microsoft are up more than 7% year to date after jumping about 40% last year, largely due to investor enthusiasm in AI and its potential to create growth for the company. In 2023, the company made a multi-billion-dollar investment in artificial intelligence, including commercializing and adding AI tools such as ChatGPT into its suite of products before rivals. Microsoft is part of the so-called Magnificent Seven, a group of stocks including Apple, Nvidia, Amazon, Alphabet, Meta and Tesla that have almost single-handedly boosted markets to new highs in recent weeks. Microsoft alone makes up 7.3% of the S&P 500. Together, these 7 stocks have a market cap larger than any country's entire stock market except for the United States.
We'll be heading for a short commercial break. We'll be right back.
The Business Buzz.
TV1, Sri Lanka's premier infotainment channel. In support of Sri Lanka's unique tradition of art and design, presents The Genius of the Place, the story of Jeffrey Bava, a film by Abdel Aziz. Exclusively aired in Sri Lanka on TV1, 11th of February at 5:30 p.m.
Education, an invaluable asset that can never be taken away from you. Laying the foundation stone for a new library building for the students of Nakyateniya Udagama, aiming to open new doors for a brighter future. Gamnatha, for the people, by the people.
The Business Buzz.
Oil prices, which climbed in recent weeks on fears of increased violence in the Middle East and a drop in production by Russian refineries, steadied as a number of new factors came into focus. West Texas Intermediate crude futures steadied above $72.50 per barrel, and Brent futures steadied at around $77.50.
Fears that the retaliatory raids by the United States on Iran-backed groups in Iraq and Syria would lead to a wider conflict calmed down. Meanwhile, rumors of a possible ceasefire between Israel and Hamas also fueled expectations that the conflict would die down. At the same time, expectations of interest rate cuts by the United States Federal Reserve also faded and had an effect on oil futures. Finally, persistent concerns about China's economic recovery also weighed on the global demand outlook.
Cathay Pacific this week returned its flights to Sri Lanka from Hong Kong after 4 years. A welcome addition of an airline service that earlier had a presence in Sri Lankan market for 30 years.
The first flight from Bandaranaike International Airport took off on Friday, the 2nd of February. The thrice-weekly service operates on Wednesdays, Fridays and Sundays on Airbus A330 aircraft, offering 28 flatbed seats in business class and 265 seats in economy. The flights will serve as a gateway offering connectivity via Hong Kong to the Far East, the Southwest Pacific and North America. The airline is also promoting special fares for students travelling from Colombo to Sydney, Auckland, Singapore, Tokyo and Kuala Lumpur. Cathay Pacific offers the best connectivity linking Sri Lanka seamlessly to other destinations across the Greater Bay Area and long-haul travel to Australia, the USA and Canada. The airline says that it looks forward to welcoming Sri Lankan travellers aboard their flights and delivering a journey that exceeds their expectations.
Alamax PLC, a prominent player in Sri Lanka's aluminium extrusion industry, capped off an exceptional 2023 with great successes, clinching over 14 awards.
At the 25th Presidential Export Awards 2023, Alamax received the coveted title of Overall Emerging Exporter of the Year 2021-2022 and a Merit Award in the Light Engineering sector. Alamax also won the silver under the Machinery and Light Engineering sector at the 31st NCE Exporter Awards. Since 2019, the company pioneered the establishment of a novel export product category within the Sri Lankan export portfolio with its high-quality aluminium extrusion products. Subsequently, Alamax embarked on a journey of international expansion, successfully penetrating and developing global markets. The company exports substantial volumes to international markets, including Canada, the United States, the United Kingdom, Germany, Italy, New Zealand, Australia and Singapore.
Sri Lanka's largest fitness centre, Evolution by High Octane, opened recently at the Mireka Tower in Havelock City.
High Octane Fitness, Sri Lanka's exclusive and largest gym located at Dotugamunu Street, launched their newest branch, Evolution by High Octane, on the 31st floor of Mireka Tower, Havelock City. With an amazing 360-degree view of the Indian Ocean, the Colombo city skyline, a view of the mountains on one side, the central countryside on the other, this is a one-of-a-kind facility motivating gym-goers while they work out. Evolution by High Octane, its newest venture, is the epitome of the brand, spanning over 8,000 square feet, equipped with state-of-the-art equipment. The gym is built with over 100 workstations, state-of-the-art cardio treadmills, multiple cross-training locations, physiotherapy equipment and recovery spa, indoor running track, saunas, locker rooms and the shake bar. Co-founder Darren Veer Singh has said that Evolution by High Octane Fitness will lead the way in Sri Lanka in terms of an exquisite space for people who want to make a difference in their lives with their health. Evolution will give an experience of a place where people will want to wake up in the morning and come to a gym.
We'll be heading for a short commercial break. We'll be right back.
The Business Buzz.
බින්දුවටම ප්‍රතික්ෂේප කරපු සමහර දේශපාලන ප්‍රවාහයන් ආයෙනවා කලාව නාව. ඒකෙත් කලාවක් තියෙනවා. ඒක කලාව. ඒ මොකක්ද ඒක? කොහොමද ඒක කියවන්නේ?
තරුණයෝ ඉල්ලුවේ සිස්ටම් චේන්ජ් එක. ඒක උනේ නෑනේ.
ඒක හදන්න මිනිස්සු ඉන්නව නැත්තේ නෑ. IMF එකෙන් ණය ගත්ත හැකි. ඔව්. ආර්ථික කඩාවැටීම. මේ සංස්කෘතික කඩාවැටීම සිදු වුණාන් පස්සේ අපි කාගෙන්ද ණයට ගන්න කියන ප්‍රශ්නේ තියෙනවා.
හරි කරගෙන කාට හරි ගෙයිමක් දීලා කීයක් හරි හොයාගෙන ඉන්න නම් පුරුෂාර්ථය හැදිලා තියෙන ජීවිතේ එතනින් එහාට යගේ හියුමන් ලයිෆ් එකේ ගමනක් නෑනේ.
මිනිස්සු ප්ලෑන් කරපු ජීවිත නැති වෙලානේ හැමෝටම තමන්ගේ ජීවිතය අහිමි.
ප්‍රජාතන්ත්‍රවාදයේ දරිද්‍රතාවයක් කියනවා. Poverty of democracy.
බුද්ධිමය සංවාදය බ්‍රහස්පතින්දා රාත්‍රී 10:30 මාවත.
පිරිසිදු වතුර බොන්නට නැති වුණත් ගම්මාන දෙකක පවුල් 300ක් පමණ එකම ලිඳකින් ජලය සපයා ගන්න විදි දුක් ගැහැට නිමා කරමින් අනුරාධපුර මහවිලච්චිය ඉට් කලාපේ කැලි අමුණුකුලි සහ බලුගස්වැව ගම්මානවල ජනතාවට පිරිසිදු පානීය ජල පෙරණයක් ලබා දුන් වගයි. ගම්මැද්ද රට නගන ජන පෞර.
The Business Buzz.
It is now time for Food for Thought, where we give you something to think about.
76 years ago, Sri Lanka was handed its independence by our colonial masters, the British. As we celebrate Independence Day this weekend, it is worth examining the meaning of this word. In what way can Sri Lanka be said to be independent? It is extremely difficult to find an answer to this question. We are definitely not financially independent. Right now, we owe our day-to-day existence to the benevolence of funding from external parties such as India, the IMF, World Bank and the ADB. Meanwhile, a host of creditors from foreign governments to foreign bondholders have us by the throat. Are we independent in terms of food security? Definitely not, with almost 10 million Sri Lankans on welfare. Are we energy independent? In a land where the sun shines throughout the year, we have made ourselves dependent on oil and coal. Each time there is an incident in the Middle East, we hold our breaths and hope that we don't have to pay more for everything, from electricity to the transportation of vegetables. We once had a thriving export economy, but today we are entirely dependent on imports for everything, from televisions to Mysore dal. As for law and order, our very lives are dependent on the drug czars who seem to rule the land now, and our island as a transshipment point for every nasty narcotic you could think of. The Minister of Public Security has had about 40,000 people arrested, but criminals continue to rule our streets. As we look back on 76 years of lost independence, we need to understand that we need to rest back and preserve our independence once again.
We leave you tonight with words of wisdom from a global leader, as we always do. Herbert Hoover, the 31st President of the United States, who held office during the Great Depression, said, "Economic freedom cannot be sacrificed if political freedom is to be preserved." And that's all the time we have for you tonight. For Newsfirst and the Business Buzz, I am Peruni Karunaratna. We'll see you again same time next week. Until then, take care and good night.
The Business Buzz.